Well, today we're going to talk about chapters 25, 26, and 27, which is way too much to do at one time, but we're going to give it a go. And it's a very interesting story because it's the story of Isaac, prays for his wife who hasn't had any children, and she has children. She has two, and it's a story of how they are acting even in the womb, which is very interesting. Now, how many of you know twins? Yeah, there's one. Well, I'm married to a twin, and let me tell you, you don't want to play pinochle with twins because they have some kind of psychic connection, and they pass cards in the weirdest way, and I don't know if you know about melding in pinochle, but they'll bid 30 something and get 45 meld, so yeah. But twins have a connection, don't they? So these two twins are different in that they're not very close together. In fact, even in the womb, they're tussling back and forth, back and forth. So let's go ahead and start on 25:19. Now, these are the records of the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Whoop. Let's go to the next verse. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as his wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, and the sister of Laban, the Syrian. And Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And the Lord answered him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. So you always want to be careful what you pray for, right? He prayed that she'd become pregnant. He didn't realize he was going to have sons, two of them. But that's what happened. But the children struggled together inside her, and she said, if it is so, why then am I this way? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and that's so important. Is this too close? Is that why I'm doing that? Is that better? We'll see. See how much static I can create. Oh, still doing it, yeah. So anyhow, these two, Rebekah, she goes to the Lord and say, hey, what's going on here? What's happening? Why are these two children within me fighting like they are? Can you imagine that? I mean, most of you women have experienced a baby kicking, right? Whether in the womb or out of the womb. It's not a pleasant feeling, is it? And yet there she was with these two kids within her already tussling. And this is what the Lord says to her. And this is very important. The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples will be separated from your body. And one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Now, in this time, the firstborn was the favored one, right? They got the bulk of the inheritance, and in Abraham's descendants, the one who ran the clan or was the head of the tribe, he was the firstborn. He became the firstborn. And then he became the chief, if you will. And we don't see that word in here, but we know Abraham was the leader, and then his son is going to take over for him, right? That's Isaac. So here's Isaac having children, about to have 2 children. And here's what the wife is the one that God speaks to. That's interesting, isn't it? If you read the Bible, especially the Old Testament, you find out that it's kind of male-centric, if you will. In other words, it's a lot of stories about men. Men are the prime culprits in most of the stories. My sister, she won't read the Bible because it's too chauvinistic. And I said, well, if you really read it, you see that there's a lot of women in there, and God speaks to the women, and the women have better character than most of the men. It's kind of interesting how that happens. That women, number one, can hear from God, I think because they're a little more sensitive, and they obey God. So And so here God gives her the word. Look, there's two nations within you, two peoples. That's why they're struggling now. There's two of them in there. But you need to understand why. Because there's two nations that are going to be formed. And that's what's going to happen. So we're following the line of Abraham. Actually, the line of Adam, right? Until the flood. Then it's Noah and his sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham. So these are relatives of Shem. So we're going to follow that line. It isn't that the other peoples didn't matter. It's just that God was going to work specifically through this part of mankind, through the sons of Shem. And we see that as we go on. This is the family we're going to focus on. And, it's interesting because God chooses this, right? But we have to remember God chooses things in a way that seem kind of arbitrary to us, but really they're not. Why? Because God sees the future, doesn't he? We just see the present, and that's all we can see, which sometimes we wish we could see the present, but we've seen enough Twilight Zone episodes that we see what happens when people see the future. They go crazy. So anyhow, we're going to follow this on. So when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in their womb, and now the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. And that's what Esau means, is red. So afterwards his brother came forth with his hand holding on to Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob, the grabber of a heel. And there's been a lot of other names attributed to Jacob: trickster, conniver. We see a lot of that in his life, don't we? Him trying to win over on something. And we're going to see in this story how he does that even now. So holding on to his heel, so his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. And the boys grew up. Esau became a skillful hunter and a man of the field, but Jacob was a peaceful man living in tents. So right off the bat, we see these two boys are different, right? One's out in the field hunting animals all the time. The other's in the camp, helping mom, doing things with mom, So she becomes the biggest influence in his life. Whereas Esau is a hunter. He's out in the fields. Probably his father took him out there, gave him his first bow and arrow, and taught him how to shoot and do things. So there's a distinct difference in these two boys, in their attitudes and in their behavior, what they want, what they're called to. And it's interesting that God chooses Isaac. You would think if you wanted a strong ruler, you pick the hunter, right? Because he knows how to defend yourself. He knows how to defend people. He knows how to shoot a bow and arrow or throw a spear or whatever, that's the kind of person you would want. Not so much the person who knows how to cook, right? That's how I do it anyhow, I'd much rather have a mighty warrior type guy than a cook. But God chooses the cook. He chooses Jacob for a reason. And if you know the story of Jacob, you see a lot of flaws in him, don't you? So why does God choose somebody with those kind of flaws in him? And I think it's for us. It's for us. So we see that God is even willing to use those who are not perfect, who aren't not the strongest, not the smartest, not the bravest, not the best cook. He picks who he thinks will take care of things in the future. And he sees that. And it's really strange for us to see what happens with Jacob, because we just don't see real leadership qualities in him in any way, shape, or form. So it's really sad. So let's skip on down. Let's go on down to 29. Well, we didn't skip very far, did we? Okay, so Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please let me have a swallow of that red stuff there, for I am famished." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." Esau said, "Behold, I'm about to die. So what use of it then is the birthright to me?" And Jacob said, "Swear to me." So he swore to him and had sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he rose and drank, and he went on his way. And thus Esau despised his birthright. So here we see one of the reasons why God chooses Jacob, because he sees the value of the birthright, doesn't he? And Esau doesn't, And you think how many times people have done things like this. I was thinking about it, if I was going to put a name on this, I'd say the name would be Truth and Consequences, because we see a lot of the consequences of decisions that are made in here, and we know the truth, but we don't see it exemplified very well. So all of a sudden, Jacob now has the right of the firstborn. And there's a lot of pluses that go with that. But we don't have time right now to talk about all of them. In chapter 26, now there was a famine in the land, besides the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham. So Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, stay in the land which I shall tell you." So one of the things in the Old Testament is Egypt is always a symbol of the world, because it was wealthy, it was powerful, it was irrigated. So they didn't depend upon the rain like they did in Israel and in Judah and Canaan and all those lands around there. They're dependent on the rains that come in off the Mediterranean at the right time of the year. Well, so here's a famine. It's interesting, whenever we see a famine, we got to kind of ask ourselves, well, what's that about? God sends famines to get people moving, to do things, right? Remember the story with, that's going to be later on. It's going to be Jacob and his sons. There's another famine. They got to go to Egypt to get food. Well, who happens to be there? Joseph, the brother that they sold into slavery. He's now second in command of all of Egypt, and they have to go to him for food. Great story. So he says, "Do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath which I swore to your father Abraham. I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and will give your descendants all these lands. And by your descendants all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my law." So Isaac lives in Gerar. So right off the bat, we see him, you can't really say he tricked, already lost his name, Esau. He didn't really trick Esau. Esau was willing to trade anything for some of that food, right? Because he was super hungry. And he did it. And here God says, "I'm going to bless you." But he reminds him where the blessings come from. The blessings come through obedience, being obedient to the Lord. There's always a blessing in being obedient. No matter what God asks us to do, we should do. Not because there's a blessing in it, although there always is. It's because God has asked us to do something. And believe it or not, we kind of owe him, don't we? We owe him because of what he did for us, sent his son to die on the cross for us, to pay for our sins. I mean, what a deal. What a deal that is. Man. So, he stays in Gerar. But, here we go in verse 7. When men of the place asked about his wife, He said, "She is my sister." For he is afraid to say my wife, thinking the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, for she is beautiful. So here we go. No, she's not my wife, she's my sister. Well, guess what happens? The king happens to look out a window and he sees them caressing one another in the garden. And he says, "What are you doing? That's not your sister, that's your wife." Nobody touches his sister like that. So the jig's up. But here's the strange part. Abimelech, he says to them, "Behold, certainly it is your wife. How then did you say she's my sister?" And Isaac said to him, "Because I said I might die on account of her." Abimelech said, "What have you done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech charged all the people, saying, "He who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." You know, it's always interesting in some of these stories that we encounter people that are more godly than the person in God's story. And Abimelech here is more of a godly man than Isaac is at this time. Because Isaac said, "Oh, she's just my sister." No. Why? Because he was afraid they'd kill him to get to her. I don't know why they would think that taking her from her brother is just as easy as taking her from her husband, So, but Abimelech says, "You would brought all this guilt upon me." And then he says, he charges all the people. In verse 11, he says, "He who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." Now, isn't that a strange consequence of telling a lie? I mean, come on. Is that the way it's supposed to go? When you lie, where's the consequences, But not in this situation. In verse 12, "Now Isaac sowed in that land and reaped that same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him." What did he bless him for? I don't know. It certainly wasn't for him telling him that he was his sister. God wouldn't bless you for lying. So there had to be something going on there. So, down to 15. "Now all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham, his father, the Philistines stopped up by filling them with earth." So in that land, water was precious. And when you had a well, you protected it. It was yours, and you wanted it to feed water your animals and stuff. So there were wells that Abraham had dug and had given them names, and all of a sudden, these Philistines are saying, "No, these are our wells," and they just fill them up with dirt so nobody can use them anymore. That's kind of a cutting off your nose in spite of your face thing, isn't it? Yeah. So then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are too powerful for us." Now that's kind of a strange thing, isn't it? You're too powerful for us. Well, if he was so powerful, why didn't he defend those wells? Because Isaac was not a man that liked confrontation. He didn't like to confront people. And so he didn't. So then Isaac again dug the wells of water which had been dug in the days of his father Abraham, for the Philistines stopped them up after the death of Abraham, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. 19, when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there was a well of flowing water, the whole herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with the herdsmen of Isaac, saying, "The water is ours." So we named the well Isaac, and they quarreled over it too. So he named it Sitnah, and he moved away from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he named it Rehoboth, for he said, "At last the Lord has made room for us, and we will be fruitful in the land." Then he went up from there to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him in the same night and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." So he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. There Isaac's servants dug a well. 26. Then Abimelech came to him from Gerar, and his advisors Ahuzah and Phicol, the commander of his army. And Isaac said to him, why have you come to me, since you hate me and have sent me away from you? And they said, we see plainly that the Lord has been with you. So we said, let there now be an oath between us, even between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you and not have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. Wow, that's quite a statement, isn't it? What about all the wells they filled in? What about pushing them out of the country until they had to go far away? No. So, but Isaac is not a man of war. He doesn't like confrontation. He's different from Abraham. If Abraham had been in this situation, he would have fought back. But Isaac is different. So, 30. He made them a feast, and they ate and drank. Wow. So, let's go on down to 27th. Now it came about when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called his older son Esau and said to him, my son. And he said to him, here I am. And Isaac said, behold, now I am old, and I do not know the day of my death. Now then, please take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare a savory dish for me, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, so that my soul may bless you before I die. So in this situation, we see that Isaac had a favorite, and his favorite was Esau. And Rebekah had a favorite, and her favorite was Jacob. So that's not a good, healthy household, is it? And that's another thing we learn from these stories, is that home life is different, right? God wants it a certain way. But how many of you are from dysfunctional families? Yeah, most of us are, aren't we? Yeah. So what do we do with that? Is that an excuse to make our lives dysfunctional and have our homes be dysfunctional? No, we have choices we make, and we need to make good choices. And if we make bad choices, we suffer the consequences, don't we? My dad was an alcoholic, and I started out, I loved to drink. I drank a lot. And then I got to smoking pot, and then I got to taking acid, and all these things, and just going crazy. Well, you know what? Eventually, I found the Lord, or the Lord found me. I think he found me more than him. One time I was doing acid, and I was kind of traveling through the stars, just having a wonderful old time. And all of a sudden, there was this giant head in front of me. And I thought it was God. And he said, what are you doing out here? And I said, well, I'm just cruising among the stars. He said, you don't belong here. Go back. So I went back, and I thought, wow, I saw God. And I told my friends that, and they laughed. They thought that was so funny. But, I think kind of it was, It kind of looked like that big stone head that they encounter on Star Trek, on the original Star Trek. You remember that? That big head appears to him. And I think that's the way it looked. But anyhow, God told me to go back, and I went back. And over a series of events, I started to change my ways. Now I see him a lot differently. He's not a big stone head. So anyhow, he's a loving God. So Rebekah was listening to this. And Rebekah said to Jacob, behold, I heard your father speak to your brother, saying, bring me game and prepare a savory dish for me. Therefore, my son, listen to me and do as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats from there, that I might prepare them as a savory dish for your father, such as he loves. course, she knew. She knew the kind of dish he loved, right? Yeah. So then you shall bring it to your father that he may eat, so that he may bless you before his death. So they've already got the birthright, and now they want the father's blessing before he dies. Now, this is an important thing. Think about it. You know, in this situation, to be blessed by your father right before he dies carries a lot of weight. Let's be the leader. Whoops. Did I lose it there for a minute? I think so. Anyhow, so it was an important thing. So Rebecca says to him, look, we'll prepare a tasty feast for him, and then he'll give you the blessing. You'll have the birthright, and you'll have the blessing. So what does that make him? That makes him the new ruler, doesn't it? The new man in charge. So let's see how it will go. Okay, Jacob says, when he feels me, I will be as a deceiver in his sight, and I will bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. You know, is it funny? He is a deceiver in his sight. You know, he is deceiving his father, isn't he? And they kill the goats, and she put skins of the goats on his arms and his hands and around his neck, wherever the father might touch. So he feels the hairy man Esau and not the smooth skin Jacob. So they are trying to deceive the father, you know, and he's going blind, so he can't see very good. So he's going to have a problem here. So he went and did all that his mother commanded him, and Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of young goats, also gave the savory food and the bread which she had made to her son Jacob. And he came to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? So there's the first opportunity for Jacob to come true. Jacob says to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Get up, please, sit and eat of my game, that you may bless me. And Isaac said to his son, how is it you have so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Lord your God caused it to happen to me. In other words, the father said, you caught that game really fast. You know, how'd you do that? Your God provided for me. And now he's bringing God into this, helping him with his lie and this story that they've cooked up. So Isaac says to Jacob, please come close, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are my son Esau or not. Jacob came close to Isaac, his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother's hands, so he blessed him. Are you really my son Esau? And he said, I am. So there's another time. Bring it to me, and I will eat my son's game, that I may bless you. And his father said to him, please come close and kiss me, my son. So he came close and kissed him. And then he smelled the smell of his garments. He blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. Now may God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and an abundance of grain and new wine. May people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master of your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. So, wow. So here we see, and this is important for us, we so much rely upon our senses, don't we? What we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we taste. But you know, they can all be fooled. Every one of them. 3 of them are he's tricked 3 ways in this time. His sense of touch, his sense of smell. So we have to be careful not to rely upon our senses so much. What should we rely upon? We should rely upon the Lord, right? Let him guide us. Let him give us information. Let him be the one who tells us which way to go and how to go. That's important here. Now it came about as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had hardly gone out from the presence of Isaac, that Esau, his brother, came in from hunting, and he had made savory food and brought it to his father. He said to father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless him." And Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son, your firstborn Esau." And Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was he then that hunted game and brought it to me, so that I ate of it all before you came and blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, my father. Your brother has come deceitfully and taken away your blessing. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he's taken my blessing. Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" He replied to Esau, "Behold, I have made him your master, and all his relatives I have given to him as servants, and with grain and new wine I have sustained him. Now as for you then, what can I do, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Do you only have one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, my father." So Esau lifted up his voice and wept. This is the change in Esau from the time of his birthright. He didn't consider his birthright as anything of importance, but by now he realizes the blessing of the father is very important. And now he's missed out on that. His brother has taken that from him. So he's so upset, he's so unhappy about this that he cries. This is the he-man, the hunter, the game bringer. Here he is crying because he has lost his blessing. That's a strange sight, isn't it, to see him in this situation. Then Isaac's father answered him and said to him, "Behold, away from the fertility of the earth shall be your dwelling, and away from the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and your brother you shall serve. But it shall come about when you become restless, that you will break his yoke from your neck." And Esau bore a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing with his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Now when the words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she sent and called her younger son Jacob, said to him, "Behold, your brother Esau is consoling himself concerning you by planning to kill me. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Haran, to my brother Laban, and stay with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides, and until your brother's anger subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send and get you from there. Why should I be bereaved of both of you in one day?" And Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am tired of living because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth like these, so the daughters of the land, what good will be my life?" So she says to him she's going to send him away to her brother, and she does, and he goes there to meet his wife. But it's interesting, Rebekah is kind of the driving force behind all this. And the worst thing that can happen to a mother is her sons being taken from her. Now, Jacob is gone to Haran. Esau is there, but Esau's aware of the part she played in all this. He's no me, I think he figures Isaac couldn't come up with this on his own, so it had to be mom figuring this out. He always was her favorite. But now she has all those things. There's one's in Haran, and one is not going to be very affectionate towards her because he knows that she was a part of these things. So I did it. Three chapters. Wow. So anyhow, what's the moral of the story? It's truth and consequences, isn't it? What you speak, what you do, everything you say has consequences, doesn't it? No matter what, right? There's consequences. You know, Fred has his little grandson there on him. It's always dangerous with boys because every now and then they throw their head back and they could break your nose and your glasses all at once. That's the consequences for it. But Fred's willing to take that chance because he loves his grandson, so he holds him. But, you know, there's always a risk to that. It's important for us to understand that. Choose our words carefully, and when we make our decisions, think about the consequences of them. I have a friend I meet with, and that's all we talk about, is what we believe in the Word and what are the consequences of that 5, 10 years down the line. Is this going to come back on me, or is it going to continue to grow and help me to prosper and become more like Jesus?